Welcome to Rockstar Doctor Life. I'm Melissa Longo. As a chiropractor, I believe we have the profound ability to impact our communities and people's health on a global level, while also enjoying rich and rewarding personal lives and giving attention to the things that matter to us. Each week, you'll hear an inspiring conversation to give you ideas and insights to rock your practice, pursue your passions, find more connection and meaning in your life, and create a life and business that works for you. Hey there, listeners. I am thrilled once again to have a great conversation here with an amazing chiropractor who is not just impacting millions of people's lives in her own community, but she's also teaching lots of chiropractors how to do the same. And we're going to touch on some of the great things she's doing for chiropractors. But before we get into that, Dr. Monika Buerger is with us. Welcome to the show.
Hello. I'm super excited to be hanging out today.
Yeah, I'd love for you to just give people sort of a snapshot. I've gotten to know you through doing one of your courses and from chatting, just a few minutes here beforehand. But what is Dr. Monika up to right now? That's a big question for you, I know. But if you were to give us sort of a snapshot.
That's funny. A snapshot. Well, I'm on a mission. Some people say it's my passion. It's my passion and mission kind of meshed together. So I guess we can call it a passion.
Yeah.
To really educate as many parents, teachers, docs, human beings as possible about the complexities of health these days. And there's a lot of factors affecting health, neurodevelopment, conception, you name it. And I like tying all those pieces together and getting people to think global, think big, and being able to see how all these different pieces fit together. And for us chiropractors, even more exciting and more important is how all these pieces fit together and how chiropractors can affect all these pieces to the puzzle. So I have various CE online classes that we've launched with really good hardcore content and nuggets. And I get a lot of good feedback about that. And something exciting coming down the pipeline is a program we're calling Developing Minds. And it is really going to concentrate on the first 5 years of life, looking at everything from A to Z, developmental milestones, reflexes, nutrition, toxic loads, you name it. And we are working to make that a certification program as well as CE, partially online and partially in person. So it's going to be a big endeavor, but I think critical in order to change the trajectory of the numbers that we're seeing in this country and globally in regards to neurodevelopment, autism, and you name it.
Mm-hmm. Have you always had
Other than that, I'm just kind of sitting back and doing nothing.
Have you always had a passion for pediatrics?
I did. Something funny that I really haven't told a whole lot of people. At one time, way back, I even remember the day that I said it, where I was working and my coworker that I said it to. I was actually at one point thinking of becoming a pediatrician. And obviously, the universe has better plans or different plans. And so, yeah, here I am. And a big influence in my chiropractic career was Dr. Claudia Onrig. And those of you who know Claudia, it lends itself to the fact that I have focused in that peds arena.
Mm-hmm. You're a chiropractic pediatrician, the best kind.
Hey.
So you've been in practice for how many years? And how did you transfer? Did you take us through that journey for you? Like, you've been in practice and then you started taking more courses in neurology and started to put the pieces together in your own practice before you started teaching it to other docs?
Yeah, I've been in practice 28 years. I'm still 24 and I'll swear to that. But anyway, back when I graduated in the chiropractic arena, we didn't have a lot of the neurology things were not out there yet. They were just kind of trickling in. My background is PT and exercise physiology, but I was always a neuro nerd. So I worked in spinal cord and brain trauma, head trauma injuries in rehab. And it always called to me. And so early on in my practice, within the first couple of years, back then it was ADD, it was a big thing. Autism wasn't on the radar. But I was introduced into sensory processing disorders And so a lot of conferences I attended were via the medical route, the PT route, the OT route, anywhere I could get my hands on information. And then it kind of stair-stepped from there. Once I would get one nugget or one piece under my belt, then I could see a bigger picture, like, wow, this also needs to be looked at, and that needs to be looked at. And one thing that I learned is I would attend a lot of conferences and be so excited and get this information. And then I'd get back to practice, and then I'm like, whoa, how do I adapt that to a lower functioning child, or a child with certain limitations, or an adult with certain limitations? And so taking the principal concepts, the neurological concepts, I created protocols and ways to adapt it given any different situation, because it's really not A plus B equals C. It's not that easy. And then I got introduced. I was so fortunate to be mentored by some fabulous people through the Autism Research Institute. They founded the Autism Research Institute, and looking at the neuronutritional aspects. And I've just been blessed to have these people drop into my lives, teach me amazing things, being able to adapt them, and then create protocols specific for chiropractors to implement.
Mm-hmm. I remember you sharing with us at one of the seminars I attended that you would go to these neurology conferences and you were the chiropractor there. Sometimes the only chiropractor there. What was that like for you? Because you're just jumping right into a world and putting yourself in the position of authority in a model that a lot of medical doctors probably were wondering, what the heck are you doing here?
I don't know if I told you guys the story when I was in Toronto. I don't know if did I tell you guys the story about when I won the prize?
Oh, you did. Yeah, but you should share that for our listeners here.
Here I am. Because when you look way back 25 plus years, I've been doing this sensory work. And it was all about autonomic regulation. All the studies out there, it was all based around parasympathetic versus sympathetic regulation, right? So I'm in my chiropractic mindset. I'm like, well, that's chiropractic. That's what we do. So chiropractors need to be in the picture here. So I go to these conferences, and at one of them, I won the biggest door prize there, right? And so I go up on stage, and I'm excited, and I get this door prize, and they looked down at my name tag, my badge, and they were like, "You're a chiropractor?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." And they're like, the look on everybody's face, and it's like, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, you guys talk about autonomic regulation so much and the vestibular system, and that's what chiropractors are so great at. That's where we make such a profound difference in the lives of these kiddos." And it was dead silence and daggers. Silence and daggers is what I encountered. But I just went on and I told my story and told them what chiropractic was all about, and grabbed my door prize and thanked them very much. And I was a happy camper. And then I went back to my seat, and I'm like, oh, that was probably not a good way to introduce myself to the other world. But anyway. Well, I think they got the message. They got the chiropractic message. Put it that way.
Yeah. And so, what comes to mind for me in that situation is there's so many situations when doctors in practice are dealing with challenges from other professionals in their own communities, perhaps, or sometimes even with people in their own practice, right, that don't really want to understand or hear the message we're trying to give them about health and healing. So when it comes to dealing with challenges or people who oppose what you're trying to share, you've had that experience firsthand. What would your advice be to other docs?
Maybe it was a good thing that I was in my early years of practice and hadn't had so many hits, so to speak, as far as, we always have had those challenges, but I just told my story, and I was true to what I believed. I was congruent to what I believed. I had the conviction, and I knew how I can help these kiddos. And I just didn't let anybody ruffle my feathers and get to me. And I just told the story. And you're going to have to take a lot of hits out there, unfortunately. And a lot of the skeptics and so forth. You're not going to get anywhere. It's my opinion. You're not going to get anywhere if you let them hold you back and freeze you. If you get frozen and are scared to move forward, when you get those hits. So just know your truth, speak your truth, have your conviction. You know the power that chiropractic has, and that it's critically important for anybody on the planet, especially those with health challenges and developmental challenges. Do your thing, let it roll off your back. Don't waste your time and energy letting those critics hold you back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and something that you mentioned there that it's come up on several shows is conviction and certainty, and being sure that you're grounded in knowing what you know and knowing that you have the ability to impact people's lives. How do you think that your certainty, I know that you're a lifelong learner and you've already said you're a neuro nerd, but as far as other docs and their ability to continue to increase their certainty, what are some of the tips that you give people to continue to be learning? How do you make learning part of your day when you're running a practice and you're running these other programs for docs?
It gets challenging, but I carve out specific times for me time. All right. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to be dead in the water. Mm-hmm. I unfortunately grew up with a lot of health challenges and health struggles up into my 30s, 40s. Chiropractic is what saved my life. There's no doubt about that. So the conviction there from me, there's nothing to dispute about that. I have my conviction. And I tell my patients when they come in, had I not got into chiropractic care, I either would no longer be on this planet, I would be dead, or I would be like them coming in with a lot of health issues. So the conviction for me is a given. So carving out time for myself is essential because I need to take care of myself. Then I carve out my times for learning and keeping up on, because I have a multi-dimension, right? I'm doing the neuronutritional. I deal a lot with methylation and nutrigenomics and the neurology, and I tie them all together. And so I think the biggest thing with those docs I mentor and us as globally, anybody in this world now, we're bombarded with information all the time because of technology, social media, and so forth. So you can get overwhelmed and you can feel less than, and you can feel behind all the time, and you can feel like you're missing out in that whole paradigm. Take a deep breath. Know that you can't soak up everything. It's just overwhelming to the brain. So carve out whatever time you can for you, whether it's an hour on Saturday morning, it's an hour on Thursday night, whatever. That's your time for your learning and your growth. And you also have time for yourself to fill your soul. So you carve out other time for that. What I do with that actually, and I advocate this to all my patients, especially my moms, is I put myself in timeout. Every night.
I like that.
I put myself in timeout. There's two words I tell everybody to learn. Learn the word no, so don't overcommit. If people ask you for things, no, I would love to do that. However, I'm not able to at this particular time. And forget the word guilt. Don't feel guilty about saying no. So those are the two words to start off with. And then put myself in timeout every night. What that looks like is I come home, I go to the bed, close the door. Usually I take a hot bath, I soak, I meditate. I let the day roll off of me so I can sleep good and I can start the next day refreshed, rejuvenated, and my soul is filled up. That is critically, critically important to form those kind of habits.
I agree. And I like that you talked about it being a timeout. And I would just add to that, if you're going to take yourself, a timeout, turn off your phone, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Put your phone on Do Not Disturb, or really, especially for the parents listening, moms and dads, we know we can get a lot done in 30 minutes of undisrupted time than you can get in hours and hours with your family. So carving out that time, but also making it a ritual for yourself that you are going to focus on going inward, whether it's meditation or self-care, but also on blocking time for learning. Because I think, obviously, every time that we learn more, we get better at what we do, it's always a good thing for our practices.
Absolutely. And never, we all feel inept at times. If everybody says, if somebody says to you, I've got all the answers to the world, a couple of my wise mentors have said, if you run into somebody that says they know everything, or they can cure your child or your person or yourself, or they have all the answers, run, because we are always on this, it's life, it's a continuous learning journey. Some of us have more time or resources or so forth, and some of us have crazier, it's different. Do what you can for yourself and your soul, and don't just block out all that other disruption of not being good enough or having enough or knowing enough, or, take little bits at a time. That's one thing that I've had the luxury of, is as this field has exploded wide open, I've had the luxury of titrating in one concept or two concepts at a time, because you can't implement. It's too much information to implement all at once. Mm-hmm. So over 28 years, I've had time to titrate and learn more and titrate this in and see how it fits in and see how it benefits patients. So those newbies or people that wanting to learn more, implement more, just take a couple deep breaths, implement one or two little nuggets at a time, see how it affects your patients, go to the next level, and don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah, I remember you sharing that at one of your seminars, the one that I was at there, because it can be very overwhelming, especially when you're spending 2 days learning, neurology, and your brain is about to explode, and you're remembering things you hadn't really thought about since school. And you get back to practice and you want to just do it all, because you can automatically start thinking about all these children that you can help in a much bigger way. And it definitely is overwhelming. And I know you said that, just pick one thing and start implementing that thing.
Yeah. Because then what happens is it gets so overwhelming, and a lot of people just look at your patients, trying to lose weight or whatever, go on a diet or do their exercise, whatever. If it becomes too overwhelming, then a lot of people are inclined just to drop it and say, I can't do this. Mm-hmm. Little bits at a time. Know that you're enough. Know that you're better than you were yesterday or last week. Get that down pat, and then go to the next level.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to create your content or to use your patient base or the things that you're experiencing in your practice to fuel what you're learning. So because it's just like you're saying, if you have someone who would know is dealing with motion sickness, for example, and I know we talked about this in your course, that can sometimes be a vestibular issue, or it can be something that they need to be checked differently. So maybe that's what you will pick to focus on rather than trying to learn everything. You can use your patients to create content or to direct your learning as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I did, and then I realized, oh my gosh, this one isn't fitting this profile. What am I missing? And then I would implement a new piece or learn something new. I'm like, that's what I was missing. And it's okay. When I look back over patients from 25 years ago or 2 years ago, whatever, I understand that I could have helped them in a different way had I known that piece of information at the time. But, mm-hmm. The old saying, when you know more, you do more. You know better, you do better. And you have to be okay with that.
Yeah. And it's, a lot of docs that I speak with too, sometimes how do you know creating content, whether it's for videos or for Instagram or just for blog posts in your practice? I said, well, just start with what's in front of you. Start with what are the questions you're getting right now, and how can you address that question and use that to then guide either more learning for yourself or a content you're going to create for your practice, and then spring that goes to something else. But you don't have to do everything all at once, and sometimes it can be overwhelming, not only for learning, but to share it with everyone. We want people to know everything that we possibly know in our brains.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that we created the Intersect for Life program, is to help support people. I have a couple mentoring programs, and it was just on that. They asked me to do it. I didn't create it. The docs said, hey. So we created these mentoring type programs to help better strategies for implementation, if they're run against roadblocks, things like that, in a context and a paradigm where nobody is to feel inept or less than, but how do we work through these situations? Because we've all been to those classes where you're fired up and you take that information home, and then you get there and you're like, whoa, how do I implement this? So I think having those means of little tidbits to help implement this is another critical factor.
Mm-hmm. What keeps you so inspired? Because, let's face it, 20 years later, you've been teaching neurology now for 15 years. You're practicing still. I didn't know you before, the last few months, but you sound really fired up about what we do as chiropractors, and you're sharing your passion, or you're sharing your passion with everyone around you. So what keeps you so inspired these days?
Well, initially it was my life was saved. with chiropractic care, and then learning more pieces of the puzzle, the neuronutrition, the methylation, the whole picture, was one step led to the other. And like I said, I am still here and have been blessed to be here and healthier in my 50s than in my 30s. And I feel that I've been given this information to make a difference in my life and others' lives. So when you know what you know, you need to do what you need to do. And that means share your information. So it started with that way. I've had some unfortunate experiences, losses I've had to endure, especially in the last couple of years, with one of my closest friends, and a terrible stroke from my brother, and other life challenges have now maybe shifted my passion, because I need to do it in honor of their lives and the reasons that they experienced their tragedies. And so if I can help one person, one child, anybody not have to experience those losses and those hurts, and it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful story of taking your own personal challenges in your own life and using them to fuel something else, right? Making an impact with others. It's
not easy. It unfortunately had to deal with somebody taking their own life, and that's a hard. You don't want anybody to ever have to experience that.
Mm-mm. And I know that part of the things that you shared with us in the seminar that I was in with you was that's also what fuels you is the stats that we're looking at these days with children, with sensory disorders, with depression, anxiety. I mean, I personally found the numbers quite alarming. And
it's horrible.
Yeah. And so can we just talk a little bit about, I know obviously we can't get into the depth of the work that you do and what you teach, but let's talk a little bit about what the programs you offer to help docs understand how they can affect people who may be dealing with some of these challenges in their own life with Intersect for Life.
Well, yeah, if you look at I call it the bigger picture. So you take sensory dysregulation. We talked about the big picture. I gave you guys I call it my opening monologue. But how dysregulation of that information into the brain dysregulates the HPA axis, which leads to a host of health issues, including the quote unquote leaky gut, which leads to a leaky brain, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's so intertwined. 1 in 6 kids are said to have a neurodevelopment disorder. 1 in 5 kids in the United States, a mental health issue. 1 in 6, a sensory processing issue. The numbers go on and on and on. So the Intersect for Life program is really based on what level of learning is good for you at your particular point in time where you are. So we have classes in regards to if you just want to hone in on primitive reflexes, which you took that class and in the live version. Mm-hmm. And there's so much to understand about that. And it's how to modify that for the infant, for the child that can't do the exercises that we know about. How do we modify that? We talk about the gut-brain axis. There's another class on that. We have a class called methylation mitochondrial metabolism. How movement, neurodevelopmental challenges, lack of movement in infancy will lead to sensory dysregulation, which can interfere with methylation dysfunction. So there's so many pieces of the puzzle. So basically the Intersect for Life program is about various classes that you can take online that meet your needs. And then if you want to dive further, we call it going down the rabbit hole. If you want to go down the rabbit hole and you want more advanced learning and you want more hands-on, we have options for that as well.
Is there one piece of the puzzle that you really wish all docs would know?
I think if you start with the foundation, if you look at neurodevelopment and the critical importance of that, I think that our fostering optimal neurodevelopment class is probably a good jumping off point. And then tag team that with the one that we call balancing the two brains. Those two together really have good foundational information to help change the trajectory of life for people. And then from there, I'd work up if you were so inclined.
So listeners, there'll be links to Dr. Monika's programs in our show notes there. And I can certainly attest from my personal experience that I've learned a ton, and I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more. So, you've been in practice for 28 years. How has that changed you, and how has your practice changed over 28 years?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I started out, and this is one little tidbit of advice, or however you want to look at it, for anybody in practice. I started out 28 years ago with the practice structure of what I knew from other mentors and kind of what I was told was quote unquote successful in school. Okay. And I had that higher volume. I was a solo practitioner, small office, under 1,000 square feet, about 900 square feet. And I saw 100 patients a day. And I loved it. I was jazzed and rejuvenated, and I thought I hit success because that's what I was told was successful. And then because of my background and my own health issues and stuff, I questioned things, and I knew maybe there were some things that I could change or add for certain kiddos. And then, the ADHD realm was coming up. And so as I learned more, I was like, wow, I'd like to implement this, that, or the other. And so the biggest thing that I could advocate for anybody is change is okay. And if your practice paradigm, your life paradigm, be open to change. And if it changes over time, go with it. Because oftentimes that's where you get to your happiest point and your most true success. Don't define your numbers or your success by anybody else's standards, if I can make that point. And so over time it has changed. And now I have a practice where I look at all those different aspects, the neuronutritional, the neurosensory, the neurodevelopment, the functional neuro, obviously chiropractic, hands down. And I'm able to tie all those pieces together. And for me, personally, that is why I'm so fired up still and so excited and love what I do. And that is defining success for me, living to what's right for me.
And acknowledging that it will change. So, what you're saying, if I heard all that correctly, you were seeing probably more people volume-wise at different parts of your career, but you were feeling there was something missing in how you could best serve those people. And so now you still have a waiting list practice, but the kind of care and the amount of time you're spending with people and the things you're doing with each visit is probably a little bit different.
It is, and so my fee structure goes up. I have a year waiting list practice. But I'm happier than, a hornet in a hornet's nest. I'm having the time of my life. And so that's successful for me. I can still make a fantastic living doing the things that fulfill me and are congruent to me. And I'll tell you one other thing. You're a walking billboard for advertising when you are living congruently and practicing congruently, meaning to whatever's right for you as an individual. And I don't have to do any advertising. Because they're like, I want that. I want to be happy like you. I want to feel energy like you. I want to be healthy like you. And that speaks volumes for itself. And I have people come in from other states. They fly in, and that's my fun. That's, but do your own thing.
Yes, that is definitely the motto of the show. And, as far as looking at all the different options for docs in the practice environments they could be in, whether it is in a big practice with other docs or as an associate or in a home-based practice or doing locums or doing other things within chiropractic, it's finding out what your life wants, what you want your life to be for you, what's going to make you feel happy and successful in light of your personal relationships and your other hobbies, and then go and create that rather than there's no one size fits all way to practice chiropractic.
Bam. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I know how busy you are, and I certainly appreciate having some time to chat with you today. And docs, I certainly recommend that you take a look at the programs that Dr. Monika offers to help you understand the effects of not only chiropractic, but also nutrition and some of the other things that you can be adding into your practice life to help children and even adults with some of the sensory processing disorders. Any final thoughts or anything that you wish all chiropractors would know at this stage of 28 years in practice?
Know the gift that you have in your hands. Be confident about that gift. Be free in giving that gift to others and speaking the truth. And never, ever, never give up. I've been through a lot of challenges in practice, and that could be another segment, but never give up. Just believe in yourself and pay it forward.
Okay, so now you've got me wanting to ask you that question now. I know I said I was going to wrap things up here, but certainly lots of docs deal with challenges in practice, from, dealing with personal injuries that take them out of practice, or dealing with staff issues, or you name it. Is there anything that you want to expand on there that might help other docs?
Oh dear.
we might go down the rabbit hole now, Monika.
All right, I'll try to do a synopsis. So I've had a lot of injuries myself. I've broken a lot of bones. I have practiced through broken ribs. I never missed a day in practice, through having surgeries, you name it, and I practiced through it. But I'll give you maybe one of the toughest challenges. In my California practice, I was in a small building. I had 3 floods in that office, and I worked through those. But in 2006, I was on the road when I was speaking for ICPA, and I had a hard time getting home because of flight issues. But my office manager / biller at the time, I contacted her, telling her I'm probably not going to make it to the office Monday morning. And she spent the weekend in the hospital. She didn't want to bother me with severe back pain. And I'm like, this is not like her, because her and I have worked through a lot of pain and have high pain tolerances. And something hit me wrong. So I did get back that next afternoon. I took an x-ray and I saw something I didn't want to see. And so I got her into a local friend physician. We got an MRI, and sure enough, she had metastasis. She had lung cancer that had metastasized to the lumbar spine and throughout the spine. And she'd been with me for 12 years. So they become like family. So not only is that an emotional hit, it is also a hit to your practice, right? You're number one right-hand person, running the office, involved in collections. There's a whole lot of dynamics that go with that kind of situation. And that was in February, and she passed away October 12th. So I was minus my right-hand person, let alone going with the emotional toll and her family emotions with it, and so on and so forth. And the next month, on our Thanksgiving, on November 26th, you notice how I remember dates, because these were quite important dates. I got a call on that night on Thanksgiving, and the police department asked me if I could come down to the office. And I said, oh dear. It had been a bad year. My mom had been diagnosed with cancer. My dad almost passed away. Been through a lot. We were trying to sell our house and relocate to Idaho. There was a lot of stuff going on. And so I go down to the office that night, and I pull into the parking lot, and there's fire engines and emergency vehicles all over the place. I couldn't see the front of my office. It was blocked. And we walk up. My husband went with me, and we walked up to that, and it looked like an explosion, like a bomb went off. An SUV had actually driven through the office and destroyed about a third of the office. And the ironic thing is I was in a strip mall, and I'm the smallest storefront on the mall, on this whole strip mall. So to my office is like, what? So when they pulled the SUV out, when the tow truck pulled it out, it set all the sprinklers off. So more flood. So I lost my reception room, my patient files, my computers, a treatment room, a third of my office. Okay. And that's a lot for a small office. I was the only breadwinner at the time. And so it was a little bit of a stressful moment.
No kidding.
We made it work. I didn't skip a beat. We used our bathroom in the back of the office as a waiting area. We had a very, a 6x4 spot we set up as a little front desk kind of thing. They came through the back door. It was chaos. It was crazy. So we spent 6 months. We rebuilt the office. We had to work through all the construction noise and this and that and the other. It was crazy. Got up and running. The practice was for sale at the time. So we had to take it off the market. It goes back on the market. We got up and running, and my husband relocates out here to Idaho. So I was in California by myself, but he came home because his father passed away. And we're sitting for lunch, and my front desk person calls me. We had ordered lunch. She calls me on a personal cell phone. I looked at it, and not from the office phone. So that tipped me off something was wrong. And all I said was, we'll be there in 5 minutes, because I knew exactly what happened. And sure enough, another car drove through the office. And that was within...
You gotta be kidding.
No, I'm not kidding.
Oh, geez.
So we started all over again. So my message to anybody is, if I can live through a year and a half, we only, the floods happened over time. But if you can live through a flood, the loss of your friend / office manager, the personal stress going on at the time, 2 car accidents, you can handle anything.
No wonder you said at the very end that, don't give up, because, I'm sure in all those moments of challenge and stress there, you had to have your own personal resilience that came through.
You just, there were times, I'm not going to lie, there were times where just to get up in the morning and put my feet on the floor was an endeavor. Because of course my stress level, my adrenals were shot. I was traveling a lot with the ACPA and teaching, and it was quite the load, but you take extra care of yourself during those times, and you just dig deep, and you never give up, and it worked out. And so I'm here, and if anybody ever is in a crisis situation, just never give up, and feel free to reach out to those that can support you, and even myself, just for a word of encouragement or a hug, or knowing that no matter how dark it is,
dealing with things, yeah.
No matter how dark it is, you pull through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that, because certainly, we've had docs in the show who've had fires in their practice, who have dealt with loss of loved ones that affected their emotional ability to practice. There's been a lot of different challenges. That we're all human beings. We're not just these awesome chiropractors. We're all human beings that are living these other lives that will affect our business. And sometimes unexpected things happen, and all we can do is keep going and keep rolling with it, right?
Yep.
And yep. I agree with you 100% in finding your tribe and finding the people who love and support you, and knowing that you're not alone. So thank you for sharing that.
You are so welcome, beautiful.
Well, now we will officially maybe wrap up the show here. I think that was an important thing that you shared, because like I said, a lot of people encounter those kind of, random chance, bad luck, whatever you want to call it, purposeful interventions. And I think your experience will help a lot of other people. So thank you again for your time. I love the work that you're doing. I'm looking forward to learning more from you over the years to come and watching what you're up to.
Sounds like a deal. I can't wait to see you again. And thank you for helping to spread the word, and being dedicated to change more lives and change the future, as our logo is and our motto is in the Intersect program.
Thanks for being here today. If you like this show, please share it with another chiropractor and connect them with this message. We are always better off together than we are alone. If you haven't yet subscribed, head on over to Apple Podcasts or iTunes, and don't forget to rate and review the show while you're there. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram and Facebook, and find out more about today's guests and all things Rockstar Doctor Life by clicking in those show notes. See you next time.